Hello and welcome to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today I have such a special episode. I have an amazing guest, Sophie Jaffe. Sophie Jaffe is a mother of three. She's living in LA with her husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, and she's an intuitive transformational coach, retreat leader, and founder of Philosophie Superfoods. So, hi, Sophie.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Your name was mentioned to me by so many people from my team, so many different people from, I think, our shared community. And I just love that one of your core values, I'm sure we share many core values, but one of your core values is intuition and connecting to your intuition and attunement. And I just want to hear how that value came about for you, how you embody it now, how you live from it now. And yeah, I just want to hear your story and how you kind of became this person that you are today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's such, intuition has been such a part of me for so long. It's hard to know like how it was exactly like formulated, created, because I do think there's a certain aspect to kind of being born, nature versus nurture, of course. I definitely came out being a feelings, deeply wise spirit, soul. And I recognize that kind of like, when someone's like, oh, how are you? How do you have like abs after a baby? Like, I'm like, well, a lot of it's genetic, right? It's kind of like that same thing. Like I came out deeply wise. My name means Sophie and Sophia, and Greek means wisdom. And so, it's funny. It's like this is the chicken or the egg, right? Like, was it because I was gifted this name where there was pressure to be that? I don't think so. Regardless, I came out being very connected to my inner voice, to knowing from a deep level of that, we'll talk about it more, but like this internal GPS was just online, and I just kind of kept trusting that and believing in that and sinking in deeper to that inner knowing. And just like trust is a muscle, like an actual muscle in your body, the way to build the trust muscle is by using the trust muscle. And trust and intuition are very like hand in hand, a partnership for me. The more I trust that everything's happening for me, the more I trust that I know what's best for me, the better my intuition is and sharpens, and the more my trust comes through in situations that are like much harder to kind of grapple with. And that's like why I'm so passionate about it, is because by trusting my own inner voice and my inner knowing and this true north, at the end of the day, like I know what's best for me. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's at the end of the day, that's what matters, is trusting that you know what's best for you. Like no coach, therapist, of course, people that love you can give you advice on things, but it's from their vantage point. And the better we know ourselves, the better we can make decisions and choices and build a life around that inner knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. One of the reasons, and I feel like I didn't do a great job of introducing why I wanted to have you on here as it relates to my audience listening. I was just so excited to have you on that I kind of jumped the gun on that. But one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring you on is because such a core tenet of the way that I guide people to overcoming emotional eating and creating a healthy relationship with food in their body, even when they do want to lose weight, even when they do want to have abs, right? And even like both and, right? Like both things can live together,
100%.
but the real important element, I think, and what is the biggest game changer is that ability to connect to your intuition. And it's a skill, right? And just like you said, it's a muscle. It's not, so things like intuitive eating, I'm always like, you can't intuitively eat if you're inherently not connected to your intuition.
Correct.
Like you
Yeah.
can't go read a book about intuitive eating and go and do it. And if you're, severed and disconnected from your intuition, at a deep level.
Right.
And
That's
so,
why it's so hard at first for many people that I've worked
mhm,
with, I'm sure that you've worked with, for myself going into this, is it's not a diet. It's not a book you can read that's like, eat this way for 30 days and this will happen. It's not like that. You
mhm,
are the answer. You are the muse. You are the guru. You are the one that knows what you need to be eating, how much you need to be eating, what feels good, what doesn't. And the only way to really get to that point of that trust is by first tackling this beast that is intuition to begin with. And then once you start understanding what intuition is and trusting your own intuition, then you can apply it to movement and eating and parenting and living an intuitive life. But first, that comes with the practice of just like, what is intuition and how do I lean into it and how do I trust when I have a lot of fear, or how do I trust when I've been hurt a lot or have trauma? Like, it's a bigger thing than here's a book on nutrition, study it, and then do it, right? It's much deeper
yeah,
than that.
so much deeper. I mean, I'm a dietitian and I have been taught all of these different modalities from an expert quote unquote perspective, but also from living, my lived experience of being an emotional eater, being a food addict for so many years, dealing with eating disorders and, compulsive stuff, and trying all that stuff and realizing that it really is connecting to yourself. And I'm sure you could speak on this as well. Part of connecting to your intuition and attuning to yourself is failing at it
Mm-hmm.
and like
Definitely.
reflecting back and realizing, you know, oh yeah, so that didn't work out.
Yep.
And
That didn't
you
feel
really,
good.
yeah, like that. And really connecting to wanting to feel good and seeing all of the quote unquote failures, or when you weren't connected to your intuition, as an opportunity to see how you could connect to it next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because people understand. I'll back up. When you're doing a diet where you read out of the book, do this thing for 30 days, don't eat this, do eat that, it's almost like easier to understand when something's a fail, but when it's less clear, like it is with intuitive eating, because the way that I eat, when I eat, how much I eat is very specific to my unique body, to how much I'm moving, what part of life I'm in, what stage of life I'm in, where am I on my cycle? Am I postpartum? Am I pregnant? Am I training for a marathon? Am I less active? Am I more active? What is my specific body? Like, it is so unique.
Yeah.
It's not something that can be dictated to you through a yes and a no. The yes is, how does it feel intuitively to eat that thing? And when you're really mindful and tuned into how something makes you feel, then you know where your limitations are. You know when you're full. You know when you're hungry. You can listen to your body's cues, because our bodies are constantly communicating with us. But if we're not in communication with our bodies and we're forcing a certain diet, or we're forcing a punishment of a workout, or we're in a relationship that doesn't serve us, or we're in a dysfunctional relationship with a friend, or we're in a job that we hate, why, when we're overriding our intuition every single day, do we expect to then be able to intuitively eat, right? Like, it doesn't work. You like we said in the beginning of this conversation, is like, it starts with, what is intuition? What is trust? How can I flex that muscle a little bit more today, and practice, 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 and then eventually it becomes much more of a way of life. And then you can apply it to all these different things. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, I intuitively live my life now. And wow, that didn't happen overnight. But man, did I learn when I crashed, and man, did I learn when something didn't feel good. And that's how I knew how to adjust, right? It's the pendulum swing of like, oh, intuitive eating is just like you eat whatever you want whenever you want to. Well, that doesn't feel good. And then it's
Exactly.
like, oh, and now I'm going to go back to that extreme way that I used to live, and I can't have this and I can't have that. And then it's like, oh, that doesn't feel good. It's so restricted. And then the pendulum swings and finds the middle, and that's where it is. It's not perfect. It's just balanced.
Yeah. I always say like balance isn't a place to get to, it's a place to return to, and that's
Love
really
that.
what it is,
I love that.
right? Like it's a place to like your balance if you know how to return to it, you know,
As often as you
quicker.
can. Yeah, quicker.
Yeah, or like the more you can respond, kind of the more efficient you can respond back to your own center,
It's also like
that's
a
balance.
resiliency, right? It's like this
Exactly.
ability to be resilient. Like, oh, like last week I drank 3 nights in a row. I don't really love alcohol. It's like my least favorite substance. If I'm gonna do a substance, it's not gonna be alcohol. But we had like, date night one night and like a glass of wine, and we were at the
Mhm.
beach by the beach, and like I want it. I'm gonna have it. And then the next night we had Shabbat dinner and my parents were over, and it was like it felt good. So I had a glass of wine. I don't even think I finished the glass. And then the next night we went to a friend's birthday, and like they're cheersing and had champagne, and like I'm intuitively connecting to. It's not like, oh my god, I got like peer pressured into drinking. I made those choices. And when I make the choice to do something intuitively from that true north, from that true desire, whatever that desire might be, there's no judgment around what that thing is. To me, I got to savor and enjoy the process of having those drinks when I don't drink very often. And there's so much negativity around alcohol, which I appreciate. I appreciate the research.
Mhm.
I appreciate the
Yeah.
knowledge, especially for heavy drinkers. I think it's wonderful. I'm all about the movement towards, you know, psychedelics and microdosing and all of the things. And for one person, what's a poison might be someone else's, medicine. And
Mhm.
for last week, I slept great. I digested the wine really well. I had it with food. I savored every sip. And that's what worked for me. And then, yes, are there still repercussions? Is my HR a little bit higher or lower? Or like, are things being affected in my body? Yes, but I enjoyed myself. And so I bounced back, and I'm not going to drink this week, not because it's extreme and I'm punishing myself, but because I'm giving my body a reset, and I'm saying thank you for allowing me to have 3 separate occasions last week where I drank alcohol and I didn't feel like I was in a terrible state, right? And instead, it's a relationship. It's a conversation with my body. Like, I love you. I'm going to just take a break. Not because it's inherently bad, but because I had such a good time and I don't need it this week, right?
Exactly. It's so true. And I get a lot of comments from clients or people that I work with or, in any of my group coaching programs or one-on-one where sometimes people say, if I don't if I don't eat this snack or this cake and if I say no to myself, I feel like I'm on a diet. And I'm
Mm,
always like, exactly what you said. And I said, well, the only reason you think you're on a diet is because your mindset isn't connected to
the
a
choice.
place of empowerment,
Yeah.
right? An empowered decision of you having it,
Yeah.
right? Like you can have this and you can enjoy it. And then you can also say to yourself, oh, I overdid it. But the power is really in saying to yourself, I don't need to have a construct that I have to follow in order to give me permission to enjoy. I can I can trust in the ability to build the structure as I go along and be willing to adapt and shift accordingly in the moment, right? It's like we're both yoga teachers, right? Like the moment to moment
Yeah.
thing is so valuable. I feel like for me too, I could have an idea of what I'm going to eat in the morning, right? Like
Mhm.
that day. And I sometimes do, right? But like you said, somebody will come over with like, oh, I think, and I say this like, I love pizza, and like me eating pizza every week has become like massive for me, because back
Yeah,
in the
I
day
get
when
it.
I was struggling, it was like a battle, right? It would be for in many ways.
Well,
And
it's
so,
labeled a bad food in our brain, and there's so much. Yeah,
yeah, and it would be like, oh, you ate this, fuck that. Like, you can now just binge for the rest
exactly.
of the
Day,
you can
week,
now just binge for the rest of the week, and now the
screw
week
it.
sucks and like it's
Yeah,
ruined. Exactly. So, but for me now, and so now it's really great because I don't feel like a slave to some sort of plan, right?
100%.
Like I could say, okay, I thought I would have this on Sunday, but you know what? I went to a party to someone's house and we're having pizza Friday night now. So I guess I'm going to have it Friday night. Not ideal. Like I didn't think of it, but like great. So now tomorrow, I'm going to adjust, and you kind of adjust on the fly, and that
That's
ability
intuition.
to,
That's intuition
yeah,
right there.
exactly.
And
That
trust.
ability to
Yeah,
trust myself, to be
yeah,
attuned,
yeah.
that is the most food freedom. So when people say food freedom is has to do with actual food, I'm like, it doesn't have to do with
It's
actual
nothing
food.
to
It
do
has
with it.
to do with your
Yeah.
ability to feel free in flying by the seat of your pants and making choice.
And feel
Curious your
free
thoughts.
to feel free to actually enjoy and savor indulgences, whatever
Mhm.
that might be for you. Like I'm a
Mhm.
double Taurus. I'm all about sensation. Like I'm all about beauty and flowers and like being adorned and sensuality, and I it comes through food. Like when I eat fresh fruit that's like a ripe mango, like I have a visceral response to even thinking about having a mango, and like the juices like coming down my face. Like I'm not going to slice it up and eat it with a fork. I'm going to open it up, let the juices flow, like get mango in my teeth and then have to floss later. Like I want to get inside of it. And that is also by using my hands and allowing the juices, allowing me to also digest it in a different way and communicate to my brain, that I'm eating, and not necessarily fullness, but like over time, I often eat with my hands. And it's an intuitive thing I do, but it's actually, there is a brain connection where
For
it then
sure.
allows, changes the cues, as I'm sure you know. And so it's like, it's on every level. It's empowering, just like with anything, but I'll relate it to food. Like to make a choice about what you want to do, whether it's sitting and having ice cream with my kids on the kitchen floor, like late at night, like it's my choice. It's my
Mhm.
decision. I love the thought of like decision being more powerful than a choice. Decision is like scission, like you cut through the other options and you say, I am choosing to like I'm deciding to cut through any other options and take my power back and say this is what I want to do and here's why for ourselves, even if we're avoiding. Even like I will consciously be doing something to I will be aware and connect enough to myself to know that I'm distracting myself, I'm numbing myself. Oh, okay, I see what I'm doing here. I'm using this ice cream to numb my feelings because it feels like too much. I'm going to keep doing it because it feels good and I want to numb myself right now. But that simple choice, that simple decision to say, I am in my power right now. No one's going to tell me what to do right now. I tell myself what is right for me, and this is what feels good. And I swear the times that I do that and I make the decision based on my intuitive self and taking my power back, my stomach doesn't hurt. I don't get as bloated, if at all. I feel fine when I wake up. It's a stark difference from blindly eating or consuming or feeling guilty and saying bad thoughts to myself as I'm eating that piece of pizza or whatever the thing is. It's completely different because I'm embodied. I'm
Mhm.
actually embodied and I'm experiencing the food and the sensation and I'm experiencing the choice and the decision. I'm cutting off other options and I'm saying this is what's right for me in this moment. I'm going to live in the moment. I'm going to indulge. I want to have this thing. And
Yeah.
then I have my power back.
Completely. I do that too. I mean, and that's such a huge thing to train to, as a training for people to learn how to do. And I always say it's like recovering from emotional eating isn't never emotional eating. It's
No,
never not doing it.
it's the
I
consciousness.
probably
Yeah.
emotionally eat weekly.
Yeah.
It's more that I just decide that I'm going to do it and give myself that internal permission, like you said, that intuition. And I also take responsibility for the fact that I made that decision. So then the
Yes.
next day, if I want to do it again, I kind of have to say to myself,
Yeah.
okay, yesterday I did it. It didn't feel great. And
Yeah.
so now it's like an accountability, radical responsibility thing because I want to feel good and I want to look a certain way. And
Yes.
so if I continue to allow myself to just indulge all the time because I want to, that teeters the line now of like irresponsibility and not really being, I'm not saying that it's black and white, but that's kind of I think people have it. I think people would be really, it would really benefit people to see it that way, right? Where it's not like a behavior is necessarily bad. It's really your motivation for the behavior and how you're going about,
What's your true
um,
desire? What's the true desire behind it?
right? Like
You don't, if
making the
you're going through the
decision.
motions and you're on autopilot, you're going to get a stomach ache. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to have self-hatred. You're going to speak terribly to yourself because you were in autopilot.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Take,
mean, you're also gonna take away your whole like you're taking away your entire you're disempowering yourself
yes,
basically. You're taking
yes,
away your agency
yes.
as far as you being the one that's in charge of how you can relate to food and eating. Like it's the same thing with like working out too, right? Like it's the same thing with almost everything, but it's not that it doesn't have to be that strict. It
No.
doesn't have to be
And
that
that, and
many
that's,
rules.
that's what I want to kind of focus on too with you is just like the flip side of that. Like I'm in a world where I'm indulging all the time now. Like I indulge all the time and but indulging can be different things.
Yeah,
It could be like
for sure.
it could be a gluten-free donut. It's not like it's crazy, but like to some, to my past self, it kind of is,
Mhm.
which is funny because when I was binge eating, I was eating way worse, way more calories, way more self-hatred, way more abuse to myself. This way of just giving myself grace and saying like, yeah, I want to have this thing, but it's a conscious, empowered, embodied choice
Mhm.
means I have no reason to binge later. Means I have no
Exactly.
reason to punish myself later. It
And you
was my
also
choice.
have no reason to think that this was bad and feel like you need to do it now for
No,
3 days and
that
go
was my
into a shame
choice.
spiral.
That was my choice.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like when you could say I made that choice to have that, and also not only I made that choice, but like I had it. So
Mhm.
like and I enjoyed it
Mhm.
and that's good. Like
Yeah.
that could be enough for now. You
And
know? And
that's positive reinforcement for your intuition. Like
exactly.
I made this choice. It felt good in my body. I enjoyed it. I actually
Mhm.
loved the taste and I slowed down and I let the, whatever drip down my mouth.
Yeah.
Like that is part of the visceral experience of being alive.
Mhm. For sure.
And when the pendulum swings the opposite way. So like I was saying, I'm on like this other side where I indulge quite a bit. I'm also eat very, very clean and
Yeah, same.
beautiful foods, but I have an appetite. I eat more than what most women allow themselves to or need. I don't know which it is, but I allow myself to fully fill myself up because I don't like the feeling of being hungry. And I'm very active and I'm a generator. I've got a lot of energy to burn and I have a lot of energy that I do burn by moving and being active
Mhm.
and being fully alive and engaged in my life.
Yeah.
Just the brain power and being so present to the magic and, ugly crying on a regular basis from happy tears because my life is because I can see from bird's eye view how beautiful my life is. That takes a lot of energy to constantly be engaged
Mhm.
and show up and do the work and all of that. So that burns a lot of calories.
For
And I'm
sure.
aware of that. But on the opposite end of the pendulum, I see with some of my friends that are younger, this need to control and to say, well, I didn't feel good when I had that thing. So therefore, I'm just not going to allow myself to have that thing anymore. And I'm going to have these heavy restrictions. And that's unfortunately not intuitive eating. That's still restriction. And so there is a nuance there. And I want us all to be able to look in the mirror and really notice our habits, because I think that we may call something intuitive eating, or I have food freedom because once in a blue moon I have a piece of chocolate, or like, that's not food freedom. And
Exactly.
I give it to my clients straight. That's why they come to me. I'm not for everyone. I know I'm direct.
Yeah, same.
All I want is to cut through the bullshit for you, whoever's listening and this resonates with, or you're annoyed with me right now. I wish I could get those years back. 20 to maybe 26. I wish I could get those years back of obsessively weighing myself, binge eating, punishing myself at the gym, punishing myself through cleanses. I can't get that back. In the same way I help couples get through, cheating in their marriage or in their coupleship, I I want to give you the shortcuts and the tools that I didn't have during those times, because I didn't have the awareness and I didn't have the support and I didn't have podcasts like this. So I had to figure it out by slamming my head against the wall many, many times, but for a lot longer
Yeah.
than if I had a guide or someone that spoke the language and had been through those experiences of pain and heartbreak over and over and over again when it relates to food or a relationship. There are shortcuts if you learn the tools
Exactly.
and you have access to them. And that's
Yeah.
what this invitation is like, if you're still in a place where you find yourself binge eating, which is one side of the pendulum, which does not mean you're intuitively eating. Because if you're
Mhm.
binge eating, you're blindly consuming.
Of course.
You're
Yeah.
on autopilot. You're
Mhm.
numb. If the pendulum swings the other way and you're still controlling all your calories, you're looking at macros, you're putting yourself into these restricted boxes of like, I don't eat after this time, or I don't this, or I don't that. And like I will never say I don't do anything ever again. I will never say, just given my experiences, I will never say never about
Mhm.
any certain behavior or thing, because I'm human.
Yeah,
And that in itself is a restriction in a box.
for sure. I mean, such a similar story, it's ultimately, it's about really ultimately it's about really just not needing to look outside of yourself for permission, um, you know, binging and that type of behavior as well. Like I struggled with that. I struggled with binging and compulsive eating and, purging and all this stuff from the time I was 16
Mm.
until I was 30, almost 30. So for me, it was 15 years of like, huge struggle. And, um, you know, even in the years that I was practicing, I started practicing yoga, I was 18 years old. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'll be 44. So for me, it's like, a long time. And even in those years, I was doing both, right? Like I was going to yoga and then the rest of the time I was binging.
one
So,
one foot
you
in
know,
one door and one foot in the other,
yeah,
which is important. It's like it's the
yeah,
footwork,
that's
but
always what
also you didn't have the resources. Like yoga is
right.
wonderful, but it's not like an exact path, right? It's like a
Yeah.
slower. You get to know your spiritual self. You get to know your body through your
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Like, I allow, I kind of just stumbled, blindly and kind of clumsily and courageously along the path. And also, I, created the systems and the methods to make it really fast and easy for people now to do it themselves. And, and have that sense of indulgence, but also really have that sense
What
of
your body needs
accountability.
and what your body needs. What
Yeah.
do I really need and desire in this moment? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And just like, but and that feeling that that balance, I think of giving yourself of making your of having yourself feel good all the time, and also saying like, what are the different layers to which I want to feel good, and where do I need to pull the accountability lever, and where do I want to pull the flexibility lever.
and I also
And I
want to
think
just
that that's
yeah. Go
key.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, and I think that that's really important, balance. And I think being able to sit with the feeling of discomfort of like, I'm going to kind of hold a boundary to myself, I think is also really important for people to learn how to do and not think that that's deprivation. I feel like that's very important and a way that's intuitive that I teach people the difference between deprivation and a boundary with yourself, I think is really key.
Mm-hmm.
And similar to you, I work with a lot of women who struggle with their relationship with food, who also struggle with their relationships to romance and men and developing romantic connections and need support
And
with that.
boundaries. Yeah.
Exactly. Boundaries, expressing yourself, being able to indulge in pleasure in a way that doesn't exploit you. And because I think there's a lot of overlap where indulgence can go into exploitation with a certain mindset. So I do think there's so much to it. And this, I think more people being able to share this skill set of teaching women how to connect to your intuition and how to pull those levers that are very nuanced around boundaries and around pleasure and indulgence and radical responsibility, I think is extremely important, and so nice to have people that can share that.
And that's the beauty of like how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's the beauty of practicing in one area of your life. Like if you're working on, like if you want more pleasure in your romantic relationship, you can channel that through pleasure, self pleasure. You can channel that through pleasure through food, eating really beautiful, juicy, amazing, pleasurable foods. And practice. Like that's all it is just practice, and it's constantly asking yourself what's working and what isn't. It's all
Totally.
all an invitation to look closer to ourselves. And yeah, I have so much more I want to say about this, like clients that I've worked with throughout time. I know we have limited time, but it's layers of an onion. And when you close one door to something, it's going to come through in another way. And when you push yourself in a certain way, stretch yourself to grow and evolve, it's like two steps forward, one step back, and that's
For
just
sure.
the learning process. And if we can trust that we're here for the journey, not for the destination. Like
Yeah.
I will never have the perfect body. There is no perfect way to eat.
Yeah.
There's no perfect way to eat.
Yeah.
No one can write that down for me, including myself. It changes minute to minute.
And I feel like that's really it, right? It's getting comfortable with there not being a resolution. And I think that that is the hard, like, that's what I try to, that's actually what I coach the most on are people that like, I'm like, I feel like you're looking for me to give it, you're looking for the resolution again. And so what I'm going to help you with is like, there
Like,
is
have I
none.
made it? Did I make it? It's like there's no
Like,
it.
right, and there's no
Well,
right answer,
yeah, yeah,
like, there are skill sets,
right.
and, like, this is clearly what you teach, what I teach, in our own ways, but and there are skills and there are some tactics that you can have, right? So I like to say that, and when it comes to eating, I have tactics that I teach people, but never a rule or a diet. The tactics are always tactics that can be adapted and stretched and like and can totally just, they're not like rules. They're not like, oh, have this amount of protein with this amount of fat so you can
Right.
balance your hormones. It's like that. No, it's like if you take path A, then you do this. If you take path B, then you do this. If you take path C, then you do this. If you take
Correct.
path A and then it becomes path C, then you can go look at that and be that, right? Like it's all that. But it's really people getting comfortable with having a foundation and realizing that like the house isn't a permanent house. It's something that gets built over and over again every day, but the foundation and the building blocks are the same.
And they're within you. They're
And
within you.
exactly the
They're not,
structure.
you're not like the people you bring in to like help you put the like windows in is irrelevant. You can
Right.
outsource for that shit, but you
Right.
cannot outsource for the foundation. And
Right.
that's
And like
that's that inner knowing, that's intuition, that's
yep.
taking your fucking power back.
Mhm. Exactly.
in
Yeah.
everything in your life. And
Yeah.
again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Using your voice. Where are you not using your voice in life? Where are you saying bad thoughts to yourself all day? Because if you're talking to yourself negatively or
Mm-hmm.
complaining, that
Yeah.
translates into everything else. If you're being hard and restrictive with yourself, the world is going to perceive you that way, of course, because it's only a reflection of who you are on the inside.
Exactly. I just recorded a podcast about this
It's
yesterday.
magic. I have clients
Yeah.
who are like, but why do they perceive me as strong and hard? I'm working so hard on my feminine. I'm like, remind me how many negative thoughts you have all day about yourself and how hard
But
you are on
also
yourself.
the interesting thing about that is because I also work with women on their feminine and their
Uh-huh.
energetics. The second someone tells me they work hard on their feminine, I'm like, babe, you're in your masculine.
But I want it. But I want it. I want to
Yeah.
be in my feminine. It's like, okay, trust that it's coming in
Yeah.
time.
Like if you're working hard at it and you're thinking and like you're in your brain, then you're in your
Yeah,
masculine. Like that
exactly.
regardless of whether or not you're trying to be in your feminine.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it's just so funny.
Yeah. I was going to say something about, where was it? I was going to share an example. So yesterday, I woke up and we had these like gluten-free sidecar, delicious, like gourmet donuts here. And like, I know my body. I know I need protein when I wake up,
Mhm.
or at least something satisfying, ideally something that has protein, has healthy fats. So I came back from dropping the kids off at school and I had the donut. And then my nanny came and then we split another one. And then I just
Mhm.
kind of went off on my day and forgot. I never have a donut for breakfast, not because the donut is bad. I'll have a donut at 3 p.m. after my blood sugar levels are balanced and I feel good and I've taken on my day and I've had lots of protein. Like having carbs and empty carbs and sugar on an empty stomach is never the move.
Mm.
Never. Like it just won't feel good. You can, but for me, I don't want to feel that crash and I don't want to
Yeah.
feel crazy. And then it was like noon and I was a mess. I had
Mm.
completely unraveled.
Hmm.
And it's like in my mind, I like was moving so quickly. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't being mindful. And so I just like really didn't eat much because that's not even food.
Yeah.
And it was sugar. And I
Mhm.
felt like actual garbage. And so there was a learning in that. I'm fine,
Yeah.
guys. I survived. I didn't
Mhm.
gain 10 pounds. I don't feel heavy and lethargic today. I just felt like shit. My
Mhm.
brain was not firing. I was having trouble completing thoughts. I was so hungry. And I felt like all day I couldn't catch up to the protein and the nourishment.
Yeah.
And so today's a new day. I woke
Exactly.
up, I'm good, and I had protein for breakfast. I had a big old breakfast of eggs and some chicken in there, and it was a shakshuka. It was delicious and
Ooh,
beautiful, and
yeah.
I enjoyed it so much more. Whereas yesterday, I might have actually taken that breakfast for granted. Because every morning I have these beautiful breakfasts, and sometimes I gotta just switch stuff up.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
just eat late at night. And like, I do believe there's actually in my body having those nights when I have cake and, indulge and eat late at night and have some drinks or go out with my friends, those nights are medicine for my body. And I do
Mhm.
feel like it does something with my metabolism to switch it up, kind of like we change our shampoo,
Mhm.
right? Because our body gets used to it. When you're always doing the same thing and you're in this pattern of the way things have to be, your body doesn't have time to like guess and
Mhm.
readjust and be like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Well, that's also why I tell people that when they do macros and they lose weight for the first time, I'm like, of course you are, because you're shocking your body into a new way. Like, it's not because
Precisely.
this is the way, but
Yeah.
like, tell me
Do
that
anything
4
that's
months
different.
later,
Yeah.
you're not, it's plateaued and you can't really do it as well because like because life, right? And you don't want your be obsessed with like with calculations and math
Yeah.
forever.
Yep.
And so you stop and then weight starts creeping back on, or like then you start feeling anxious about making choices and decisions because like you never really did because you were following like a plan.
Exactly.
And then the weight comes back on, and then you go back to macros, try to lose the weight, and it doesn't work. And it
Right.
doesn't work because you're not shocking your body anymore
Yeah.
into a new way.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly the cycle. And the cycle also is I can't trust myself to know what to eat and when. So I'm going to follow a diet or a
Exactly.
book or a restricted thing or someone else's, Bible of how they eat and consume, or to listen to some other dietitian or guru or coach, instead of tuning into my own rhythm, desire, and intuition. And then it backfires because you're
Exactly.
outsourcing for your own inner knowing.
Exactly. And then I think the hard part, and I'm sure that you see this with your clients too, and is really sitting with that space of connecting to the intuition, because I feel like we can say just connect to your intuition, but you and I both know that like that's a process of feedback and iteration and feeling bad and like, uncomfortable feelings, living on the edge of wanting to have the answer, but being willing to sit in the mess of discomfort. And that connecting to your intuition is it's not a light switch. It's something that you build and grow. And while you're building and growing it, like anything that has growing pains, there's growing pains and it can
Absolutely.
be painful. And
Exactly.
I think a lot of people don't want to sit in that pain
But
because it is.
it's the trust again of two
Of
steps forward,
course.
one step back. It's the onion. It's
Exactly.
yes. Yes, it will keep coming. There will be many
And
layers to the onion, and you will have two steps forward, one step back. But you can trust for every two steps forward, you've got one step back. So that means you're still proceeding. You are still growing.
exactly.
You are still evolving, but it's necessary to take the steps back. It's
Exactly.
part of the puzzle. If we are protecting ourselves constantly because we're fearful of what will happen if we mess up. We're fearful of what people will think. We're fearful that we're going to beat ourselves
We're
up
failing.
or
Fear,
failing.
like
There
then
is
there's
no
no
failing.
there,
Failing's
right. There is
yeah,
no failing. There
yeah,
is no perfect,
yeah,
right? It's just a process. And
yeah.
I think that once you can embrace it as all practice and all process, and then but being willing to pay attention to the process
That's the
and then
key.
take the information
Mhm.
and assimilate it and laminate it into it so you can really be moving forward from the steps back.
Yeah,
Like we said in the beginning, you wake up one day, and that's when I tell my story, um you know you wake up one day and you end up being you end up being there,
hmm
you end up kind of being where you want to be.
hmm yeah. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But the coolest part is that once I don't want to say master, but once you're fully embodied and practiced, it is such a beautiful, freedom filled, liberated place to be and exist. Like, I'm so grateful I can go sit with any group of people at a meal and I will eat bread if I want bread. And I'm not terrified when the bread thing comes over, like, get it off the table. I have no self control. Like, if I want the bread, I'm going to have the bread. And,
Totally.
and it's, and when dessert comes around, I'm not like freaked out by it. I'm not pretending to eat like little pieces. Like, just the games I watch women go through with
Yeah.
themselves, and then the games that I went through for many, many years of like, I'm a vegan
Hmm.
because that will allow me to control the menu and, the narrative of
Exactly.
just all of this bullshit to cover up the fact that I needed to look at myself, sit with myself, and create the space to trust myself. And you can't trust
Hmm.
yourself if you don't give yourself the space to mess up. It's just like a kid riding a
Exactly.
bike. Like, the hardest
Yeah.
part about teaching a kid to ride the bike is you have to teach them how to fall.
Yeah, exactly. It's why, like with yoga too, I feel like when I started to practice
Yeah.
yoga, I think actually, and I practice a lot of different styles of yoga, but what really helped me overcome my binge eating and emotional eating was Ashtanga yoga,
Mhm.
specifically the repetition and like going every day and really kind of just having that familiarity that did give me that resolution,
Comfort.
that feeling
Yeah.
of knowing
Yeah.
and but also I can like I could see little wins in the same posture every single day.
Yeah.
And like what really helped me overcome that fear of messing up or like being a failure or even just like putting myself out there in the world, because as you know, like when you're living in a state of self-hate and binging and like just secrecy and all that stuff, you live in a very small world and everything is scary to you. And so what really helped me break free from and become fearless was like falling out of headstand, like
Mhm.
falling out of postures. And
I mean, to
it
be clear,
changed my life.
I fall out of handstands more than I hit them. Like, to be clear, I've been practicing
Tot
yoga for 22 years.
Yeah.
I've been taking yoga for 20 years. I've been a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't hit my handstands as much as I fall out of them.
Same.
And I will never stop doing them because it's
Yeah.
fun. And it's like, when I hit the balance, just like with food. Great. I'm going to come back to balance.
Exactly.
All good. It's not a
Exactly.
judgment about whether or not I'm strong, good at yoga, a real teacher. Will I ever get, like, it doesn't matter. It's about
And I
the
lear
journey.
Yeah, and I learn something every time, right?
Yeah.
Like, every time that I try, I'm like, "Oh, that was an interesting way that I,
Hmm.
lifted my leg, or, like, I activated my, like,
Or,
bandha, or, like,
yeah.
whatever it is." And so I feel like that also, that ability to see the wins, the lessons, the process, and there's always something positive and
Always.
generative that comes out of an experience when it comes to food, when it comes to yoga.
As a
They're
fail.
similar.
Right.
Exactly. And there's something new. It's like, oh, that I can go back tomorrow and I can implement,
Yeah.
you know?
The fails are where the diamonds are made. The pressure, the
Exactly.
like the lessons and the gifts, when we can recognize that every rejection is a redirection, when we can recognize that everything's happening for us, not to us, your whole life will shift. And that's a
Yeah.
mindset choice, decision. It's a decision, cut out the rest.
Yep.
I choose to see the world as having my back. I choose to see the universe as supportive and giving me the lessons that I need to grow. And
Exactly.
then you give it up. That's it.
Yeah.
But there is nothing else. There is no failure. There is no, like, massive success. There is no competition because you're in your own lane.
And it's also I think the one thing that I also try to impart is it's like easier. Like, it doesn't have to be a struggle. It's
Dude,
like we think that it's just it's actually like so easy and like light that people are don't trust that it's that light, and so they make it so much more. And I'm always like, really? It's like it's boring.
and
Like,
it's
let it
like,
be boring and light.
look at the difference between holding your fist. If, like, whoever's listening, hold up your fist. Hold it up and make a tight, tight fist. Say there's something inside of there. You're holding on to it, right?
Exactly.
But damn, does that take a lot of energy.
Mhm.
Now make your hand flat. Release your fingers straight and hold your hand flat. You're
Mhm.
still holding that thing, but there's no force.
Totally.
And that's like what we're all doing when we're trying to control. You cannot
Mhm.
control these things and it not have a repercussion on the other side. You just can't. It's so much
100.
easier to hold your hand flat and
Mhm.
trust that you're not going to drop that thing and that you've got it than
Yeah.
muscle your way through it and hold that tight fist as if as if there's some perfect way to live and be. There isn't. So just trust. If we all could
Exactly.
just accept the fact that we can't control anything and that anything could happen in any moment, then you give it up and you just trust that whatever's meant to happen for you will happen.
Totally. Totally. I completely agree. And I also feel like having certain tactics, like we have the breath and we have
Tools.
the tools. Like, I think they're like, have your toolkit,
Yep.
and then know that you can activate those at your will, and then give up the rest. Let
100%.
go of the rest, and
Yeah, we're not
to build the
blindly.
toolkit.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not blindly walking through life. We're walking through life with tools. We're
With
walking through life
tools.
with a tool
Exactly.
belt and a whole tool suitcase. And it's up to us to intuitively know what's right for us to
Exact
get us.
and to activate it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you can be it's like someone who stands on a treadmill at the gym and, like, basically is like, "I went to the gym."
Yeah. Yeah. Or goes to the gym but doesn't do anything. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you have to actually
do it.
choose to pick a tool, try it out. If it doesn't work, try another one and
Yes,
keep
and
trying.
that's the action. The action is picking the tool. It's not trying to control the outcome as a whole,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, but all right, I feel like I took up so much of your
Oh my
time. I
God.
feel like I want you
My
to be able to
pleasure.
share,
Yeah.
like, I want you to share where people can find
Yeah.
you, anything you wanna invite, or
Yeah.
share people to
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
about you.
So my Instagram is sophie.jaffe. I share a lot about transformation, waking up, getting out of autopilot. It's really important to me. I share a lot about being a mom. I have 3 kids, so I share on my Instagram our journey with like technology and how hard it's been. And yeah, that's been something I've been really passionate about the last few months because I have a 12 and 14-year-old. So navigating that. And yeah, I share a lot about relationships as well. My husband and I lead retreats, and we have a couples group where we support couples through their pain, trauma, transformations so that they can also get out of that kind of numb autopilot. My superfood company is called Philosophie, and that's spelled with Sophie at the end. So IE, Philosophie. And then that's thephilosophy.com website for all of our amazing superfood products. We're also on Amazon, so it's free shipping on Amazon Prime, which is a big deal for us. And yeah, and then Philosophy Love on Instagram, and TikTok, which we have like tons of recipes and tips and all the things. So thank you so much. I have retreats coming up. Definitely just keep in touch. You can get on our newsletter. And yeah, it's just an honor having this conversation with you. So thanks for having me. I'm so glad everyone recommended it.
I know, same. Amazing. This was so great. And thank you to everyone listening. Thank you to Sophie. It was such a pleasure. And to everyone listening, you know where to find us. You know where to find me weekly, episodes about how to heal from emotional eating, how to connect to yourself, how to live as your truest self. And so until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you again, Sophie, and see you next time for another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped.